Got pens, right? Need a pen? 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 Who else? Pen, pen, and pen. Who needed one? One more. Okay. We're good? We're good. Okay. All right, tonight, here, remember to spell my name right. There's a lot of Richie spellings, but here, let me write my name down. Mr. Ritchie, there. I sign off at the end of class, of course. Make sure you sign early, though. Go ahead and sign in the far right column tonight. Class number 2, 6 to 8 p.m. Y'all see that you passed yesterday. Good participation. Maybe. It depends. If like your participation means that you're distracted by your cell phone, yeah. So no cell phone use. Treat it just like classroom school. Most participation is actually based on grading of tests, quizzes. We went to some quizzes, things like that. Some handouts where you have to answer some questions. You got to get 80% right on that. That's the standard in department licensing, territorial stuff. Okay? Everybody good? All right, today we're talking about, well, pretty much the origins of driver's ed. Okay, basic concepts. And how do you drive? Well, how do you teach people how to drive, too? Think about how long we've been teaching people how to drive in this country. How long? A really long time. Well, give me some kind of ballpark figure. Decades, years?
World War I.
So, oh, good one. Which would be about right when? Stumped. Your high school teacher would be. Almost 100 years, actually, yeah. Yeah, World War I, 1914 and 1919, roughly, okay? 1920s, after the war. Things happen fast in the infrastructure of countries after a war. 1920s, what did we call that era? Do you guys know? I just saw Great Gatsby. That's what it's all about, right there. They call it the, anybody know? Roaring 20s, you ever heard that expression? The Roaring 20s, why? All these kinds of fancy new automobiles on the road, roaring their way through towns and city streets, and people don't know how to use them. Because they never used them before in their life. They went 5 miles per hour. Some went pretty good. Dusseldorf could travel up at 50 or so. Most cars didn't. They're about 35 or so. That's absolutely right. Who was building these things? Especially Ford. All right, he invented something that it caught on, of course, in the industry, and he and others could pump out a lot of different automobiles pretty quickly. What they do to make these automobiles build quicker? The assembly line. That's it exactly. So you could put all these models, Model A's, Model B's, Model C's, D's. He had the whole alphabet covered, all the way up to Z, and then he had to start over again. AA, BB, CC, all kinds of models. You know what are you going to do? Well, because of that assembly line production, what? You could bring the cost down. It didn't take as long to build. You had somebody have a specialized thing to do, just slap on a tire versus slap on a dash versus, whatever it was, steering wheel. It went quicker through the line. Cost of production went down. That meant the basic, person on the street couldn't probably afford it. So more and more cars are being bought up. And now, again, they're new machines. And nobody really knows how to use it. So what did that traffic look like early on? It was chaotic. So Ford realized early that you had to really teach people how to handle this machine. Okay? And you got to teach them well. You got to teach them differently. How do you do that? Can you just, hand them a manual and say, go read this, learn yourself, teach yourself? Driving for dummies, can you learn that way? You miss out on a lot. How do you teach other people how to drive? An instructor. In other words, somebody that's done what? Already learned how to drive. And typically for so many years, decades. Well, he found this guy who knew how to drive, but he was also an educator. He was a teacher. And he actually turns out to be the first driver's ed teacher in the country. His name was Harold Smith. And Harold Smith came up with 5 rules that we still teach today from the 1920s, from the Roaring 20s. 5 rules. It has the moniker of being the Smith rules. And so everybody that goes through driver training these days and becomes an instructor is tested on it. Smith rules. The first 3 have to do with the most important aspect of driving, really. It's something you're doing differently. Remember I said yesterday we're switching seats. We're no longer in the back seat or the side seat, the passenger seat. We come over here and we're sitting in the driver's seat. You got to use what? Differently than ever before. You have to pay attention to the road totally differently by using your eyes. Well, the first 3 rules of Smith show you how to use your eyes differently than you've used them before. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Take yourself back to the first time maybe you got behind the wheel of a big automobile. It has that big old hood, that front end and such, and you get inside and you start moving the vehicle and your eyes go where? You're worried about what? Remember? I still remember. You see the problem a lot with beginning drivers, and especially drivers that get on the freeway for the first time. The vehicle starts to weave back and forth because your focus is where? Right in front of the car. You're worried. You can't see up front because of that big old hood, and you're worried. What am I going over top of? What am I going to? I can't see the pothole, things, debris, whatever. And so you start weaving in the lane. It's kind of ugly looking. Harold realized that real quick, and he lifted his eyes up off the road, and he stared off into the horizon, and guess what happened to the vehicle? It just straightened out. You're scanning better. That's the first rule. You're aiming high. Rule 1, aim high. Write it down. Aim high so you can see off into the horizon, a little further ahead of the front of the car. So you can anticipate, where it is you're going and what you might have to do. You should be staring off maybe 20, 30 seconds down the road. On the freeway, how far would that be? 30 seconds down the road, on the freeway. How fast you travel? 60 miles an hour. And how far do you travel in 30 seconds? At 60 miles an hour, half a mile. You're looking that far down the road at those rates of speeds. Down in the city, maybe you're just looking 2 or 3 blocks ahead of you, okay? Try to gauge that. But you're aiming high so you can track your vehicle a little better. You start straightening it out. Anticipate what's coming up, all right? What happens though if you start kind of fixating off on the horizon? Your vision goes to this point. What happens to the rest of your vision? You guys ever experienced that? It gets blurry. Yeah, that's right. And some people call it a sort of tunnel vision. And you start losing your periphery. You need that to drive. It picks up things like objects darting out in front of you, or lights coming on if you're looking a different direction. Your peripheral vision will catch that light. Oh, okay, I need to pay attention to that. Well, Harold realized, don't stare when you aim. Keep your eyes moving. Rule number 2. Keep eyes moving. If you fixate for any longer than maybe 2 seconds, all right, and at speeds of the freeway, 60 miles an hour, how far do you go and you're not paying attention to what's in front of you, or to the side, or behind you? You could travel almost a full football field length, almost 300 feet, in 3 seconds at 60 miles an hour. You go that full distance, you're missing a lot on the road. So keep your eyes moving. That's part of what we call our scanning routine. Okay? Scan. Scan by aiming high, keep your eyes moving, and in the process, you're also, in his last a third of the rules, getting the big picture. Big picture of what's around you. And we do that a little differently these days because of our equipment on the car. What do we got to help get the big picture? Cameras, yeah. That's the greatest, newest safety technology that almost got required on all vehicles made this year. But in the last session, they shot it down. It was supposed to be on. Half of all vehicles that are now manufactured have those cameras, those rear vision assist. So when you back in, you don't roll over top of anybody or anything. Good. So you have that. Other people, us po folk have to use what? We just look in our what? We've got rear view, we've got side view mirrors. They can adjust different directions, and that helps for noticing things coming up fast from behind, and we might not see or hear otherwise. Might try to pass us if we're moving into a certain lane. They didn't have all that stuff back in Harold's day, but you can see now it's an extension of his rule. Get the big picture. Let's add these cameras. Better safety features. Awesome. Okay? AMI, keep your eyes moving, get the big picture. There's two other rules I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. And let me bring this home to you in a real quick 7-minute video, 8-minute video. It's a AAA video that shows you really how you're supposed to use your eyes. It's called Using Your Eyes Effectively. And what I want you to pay close attention to as you're watching this is how much really of your vision is in central focus. Anytime, even when you're driving. How much of your, how much field of vision do you have total? You guys ever kind of test it to the sides? How much peripheral vision you have to the side? Well, if you imagine yourself in this circle, right? That's 360 degrees. You have, whoa, that's really good. If you got about 270, you got eyes behind your head, kind of thing. But I can see maybe more than 180, 190. Okay, the smaller you are, the less actually you see to the side because of the way your face is shaped. Little children at about age 8 or 9 can only see it at this sort of peripheral. So they don't see cars coming in from the side. Okay, well, you got to really watch out for them. As you get older and your face structure changes, now you can see way off to the side. But how much of that 180, 200 plus degrees of field of vision really ever is in central focus? I'll tell you, and show you what that looks like.